Nvidia told the world yesterday it was facing this charge related to the new restrictions from the Trump administrations on sales of its H20 chip to China. But now AMD comes out today and says it too is facing similar curbs on its ability to sell a similar product, a device known as the MI308. Both of these were designed to comply with previous U.S. curbs and restrictions on sales of advanced microprocessors to China. And the idea of those limits is that you don't, officials here in Washington don't want China's government or Chinese companies to gain too much of a technological edge when it comes to products that could have dual use for the military or potentially give Beijing a leg up in this race for artificial intelligence. So we are hearing from it, and other companies will have to keep their eye out for further restrictions, especially, Paul, as we see this trade war intensifying.
So no one wants to hear this type of news, especially for AI darlings, someone like Nvidia, especially with tariff uncertainty and the degree of those impacts still unknown. What is the environment like in Washington? What are people hearing in regards to this whole tariff story?
Well, it's a great question because we really see this as much of as part of a larger narrative here in the nation's capital. Hawkishness towards China has been growing over the past several years. Both Republicans and Democrats have viewed the world's second largest economy as much more of a rival rather than as purely a trading partner. And they have unified in this approach of trying to restrict access to sensitive technology, not just semiconductors, but also the equipment used to make them. And so this is not a real sea change here that we're seeing today. Rather, it is just another step in a direction of travel we have been following. Now, the question was whether some of the big tech companies and their CEOs who have tried to make pleas to Donald Trump, including Jensen Huang of Nvidia, who was at the White House just a few weeks ago, those pleas for maybe a break on some of these export restrictions, it's not so much that they've fallen on deaf ears, it is just that policymakers inside the Trump administration have really decided that they need to stay the course in getting tough with China.
You know, you mentioned, Michael, this has been just another step, maybe a big step, but another step in what's kind of been developing over the last several years, which I've kind of likened to a technology cold war between China and the U.S. and maybe even China and the West in general here. Is there any way to get off this track here, or is this just where we're going?
Well, it's a tough track to escape because we did see overnight our colleagues in Asia scooped that China is willing to talk with the Trump administration, but they are setting some terms for how they want that conversation to unfold. And this is much more than just the conversation that President Donald Trump might want to have on tariffs. His spokesperson said yesterday the ball is in Beijing's court. Well, Beijing volleyed back with an indication that they are setting some terms for having this discussion. One, they would like to see one-point person, not the President of the United States, but one of his top aides, serving as the main interlocutor with Beijing so that they could negotiate something. Two, they really want to make sure that these technology curbs are part of the conversation, as well as, the eternally contentious question of Taiwan. And then three, they would like to see some of the more disparaging rhetoric coming from some Trump administration officials, including J.D. Vance, comments that officials in Beijing have not taken too well. They want to see that dialed down. But we're a long way off from seeing the two sides actually taking a step toward meeting the way that we saw earlier this week. The European Commission's top trade negotiator was in town to have those kinds of conversations. We're a long way from seeing that take place with the Chinese right now.
I mean, we also saw news that Trump says that he will attend tariff talks with Japan today. Yeah. What are we hearing is really the urgency from maybe legislators and other people in Washington to really get these trade relations sorted out with some of our biggest trade partners?
Well, they certainly are under some pressure to act, and members of Congress are increasingly concerned that, this sweeping tariffs package from the Trump administration could carry some economic blowback that would be felt in their districts and could make it hard for them to win re-election in the upcoming congressional elections in 2026. And they're also worried about how the blowback from that could affect their districts and their standing, too, with the folks back home. They've already been hearing from constituents that there may be job losses, not only through tariffs, but also the administration's push to cut a lot of federal employees from the government's workforce, too.